because you mentioned you went through therapy, and recently I've personally gotten a therapist myself a month ago, because I realized, especially with what's going on with the quarantine, you're really faced with your inner demons. You really start to realize all the things that you were doing before were almost mere distractions to you not facing your inner thoughts and inner patterns. So when searching for a therapist, when someone is reading this book, goes through the workbook and says, you know what, I want a therapist, I want someone to work with, what should they search for in terms of searching for a quality therapist? Is it just someone that they connect with, or does the therapist actually have to have some training in this, nice guy syndrome stuff to really help them?
That's a good question. Up until I read this, I mean, if you want to work on a specific issue, your therapist ought to be familiar with the issue. And, but you may not have that choice. The good news is that, Dr. Glover's book could be read in 3 hours. And so you could bring the book, you could say to a therapist, look, I'm considering working with you. This is what I'm working with. Would you be willing to read this book if we work together? Would you be willing to read it? And can we work on these issues specifically? And I don't know any therapist who's going to say no. They'll all say yes. There might be some kind of hard-ass exceptions, but as a rule, no, they'll all read it. So in more general terms about finding a good psychotherapist, yes, someone who you get along with, but not too well. In other words, if you don't want your psychotherapy to be a repetition of the safety operations that you're already running. So you don't want somebody who's just nice and kind and agrees with everything that you say. You want somebody who is also challenging. Just like you want to be challenged in life, you want to be challenged in psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is kind of life condensed into an hour. And so what you want is somebody who's going to ask you questions nobody ever asked you before. Questions you don't have answers to. So when I ask my patients questions, oftentimes they'll say, I don't know. And that's good. If they knew, it would be a bad question. And what I often tell them is, I'm not looking for answers like, I'm not asking you what is the capital of Delaware. I'm looking for, the questions I ask are invitations to exploration. So when a therapist asks you a question that doesn't have an answer like, the capital of Delaware is Dover, it has answers like, gee, I don't know, I never thought about that before. That's intriguing. And your mind, you can see your head going like, and your mind is going like tilt, I'm someplace I've never been before. That's a good therapist. That's
Right.
one you want to keep.
So someone who basically invites you to explore things that you basically never explored before.
Right. Because if you go where you've already gone, what will you learn?
Right. Right. That makes sense.
You have to go someplace new if you want to learn.
That makes total sense. So there was something in your book that I was curious about, because I was going through the exercises, and one of the questions was, in your family, what role did you play to create stability or create harmony within the role of the family to make sure that it's stable? And that question was really hard for me to answer, because personally for me growing up, there wasn't any stability in my family. There wasn't any harmony, so to speak. It was very chaotic. And so thinking about that, I was going through the question and I couldn't answer it, because I was like, well, there was no part of my role that created stability. So what would you tell the guy, someone like me, who maybe is going through the book and has questions that he comes up with that he can't answer because it may not apply to him, quote unquote?
So that's an intriguing question. So one of the things that I would say is there, just as you've done, you have to do some thinking about it. And oftentimes it comes in disguised form. And so you have to kind of start to pull it apart. And so I would say, of course, the first thing I would say is keep looking. It doesn't always, it's not like I was a wonderful child and I took care of everybody and I washed the dishes and I took out the garbage and I walked the dog so nobody would have to. And I mean, in my particular case, I was a problem. I made lots of bad jokes and I rebelled against the family and against my mother, and I grew my hair long and I started to, like, I was a problem. And so there was unity in the family about what to do about Michael. So in a negative way, I helped create stability in the family. Now, in your case, I would have to like have a dialogue, and we could try it for a couple of minutes and see if we go somewhere. And then I want to just kind of throw in a thought. You know something? Look, my book is full of exercises. It's not about getting 100 points on every single one, because there are none with 100 points. So it's about doing them the best you can and learning from them and growing from them and using what you get, not necessarily to pass a test. So in your family where there was chaos, if we want to think about it, chaos is stable. In other words, that was the norm. Whatever was the norm is the stable thing, even if it looks chaotic on the surface.
So stability doesn't mean a good thing. It doesn't have to be a positive thing.
Right. A, it doesn't have to be a positive. B, do you want to let him out?
Yeah, I'll let the dog out. Come here. I guess she doesn't want to go out anymore. So. So stability just means sameness. If you're at war, the state of war is stable. If your family is chaotic, the state of chaos is stable. That sounds like a contradiction in terms, but it's not. All I mean by stability in this sense is the norm for your family. And so then you can ask yourself, who are you in the chaos? Are you the center of solidity and stability? Are you the instigator? Are you the catalyst? Are you the comforter? Who are you in that system? Could it be possible that you're a mixture of multiple?
Sure.
It could be because there was times where, even for myself, like just thinking, there was times where I instigated and I was the troublemaker, and there was also times where I almost felt like within my family I was the connector between everybody. Where if there was a fight, I was the one who they would both connect with, so everybody would connect with. So it was almost like I was a mixture where I was causing trouble, but there was times where I was also connecting everyone.
It makes me wonder, and of course I don't know your background, but it makes me wonder if you could play two roles, and one of them, when you helped create kind of stability in the sense of everybody's together and united, but if they're two together and two united, then there's no it's anxiety provoking. When will the other shoe drop? And so you actually go and drop the shoe, and then we're back where we started again. And now you can go switch back to your other role, which is the uniter. So if you're the uniter, you have no role unless there's war going on.
Right.
So if there is no war, you'll create it.
Right. And that's what it was like with a lot of my family. That's 100% true.
Well, there's the answer to the question.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's how you get there.
That's perfect.